First item is called order. We have a quorum tonight. Second item is minutes. Review the October 2nd, 2017 minutes.
And Chair, I have an update on that, an oversight on my part not to get you the meeting minutes for October, so I will have that prepared in draft form for the next meeting for you to review as well as tonight.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Item number 3, public comments. We have comments from the public. How many? 2? Okay. Come on, have a seat, Ms. Cleaver. Just let me remind everyone, including myself, that this is not a public hearing, but rather a public comment period. It is not testimony per se, but it is a venue for the public to address concerns to the Historic Landmarks Commission. And I think, Pat, we're going to limit you to 10 minutes as well as the others because we have a very full agenda tonight, and I don't want to shortchange those that are on the agenda.
Probably this will take 30 seconds, so I don't know what you thought I was going to talk about. Anyway, my name is Pat Cleaver. I live at 60465 Sunridge Drive, Bend, Oregon, 97702. And I'm really looking forward to the agenda tonight because Craig Gladkin and his wife asked me to research and write the history of the Sotong House, and that I prepared the actual application that went before the Board of County Commissioners to add that house to the comprehensive plan of the county. And I'm excited that they're working on it. And also I was staff when the CLG grant came in that we inventoried the city of Sisters within the city limits, all the historic structures 40 years old or older in 2003. And Nicole Nathan was the consultant at that point. And I worked pretty closely with her. And we did electronic database as well as paper, and all the paper files and all the photographs are in the museum on the 3rd floor. So I just wanted to point that out. Also, the commission reviewed on October 2nd the original submitted nomination of the Central Oregon Canal Historic District, and it will be going before the SACHP in June. And on the website now is the nomination. And in respect for all of you, I think you need more than a few days to review it when you get the agenda. So I've printed out off the SHPO website copies for each of you of the nomination so that you can be looking at it. Thank you. That's it.
Hi, I'm Susan Stafford from, and my address is 996 East Creekside Court in Sisters, and I'm just here with good news. I just wanted you all to be aware of the fact that we have begun a new historical society in Sisters. It is called Three Sisters Historical Society. We began meeting last spring. We have our Articles of Incorporation, we have our 501c3 status, we have our bylaws. And we met today and we're nailing down our first strategic plan. We have done, I think, a good amount of homework. We've met with a number of museum directors and toured and picked their brains, not only in Oregon, but in Idaho and Wyoming as well. We were given all of the materials that Jean Nave had from the old Historical Society. So we have all of her videos and her audio recordings and everything that she had. She gave it all to us. We have been meeting with descendants of some of the early settlers of Sisters and doing recorded interviews with them. And what we are offering them is for the rodeo parade in June, we have a horse-drawn 20-person wagon, and those descendants are going to ride in the wagon. And we'll have the family names around the outside of the wagon so that they get some recognition. We are sponsoring a series of 3, what we're calling fireside evening or Fireside Stories evenings, and the first one is February 20th. And we have been given the conference center at Five Pine as a donation for our meetings. Our first speaker is going to be Kerry Timchuk from the Oregon Historical Society, and he's bringing his treasure trove and is going to be sharing that with everybody. We're really excited about it, and so is he, actually. And I brought flyers for you all so that you can have the information about it. Our second one in March is going to be Jan Hodgers, who's going to talk about her ancestors coming to Oregon and then the settling of Camp Polk. And that evening, we wanted to have something else going on too, and so we're going to try to get Dennis McGregor to come and sing some songs for us and share from his book about the Oregon Trail quilt that he has, and maybe do a reading from that. And we're trying to encourage people to bring their kids to these, so we want to have them be appropriate for children also. We've been very fortunate for this one in February. Someone has very graciously been purchasing old sisters' photographs and negatives off of the internet and has made us beautifully framed pictures, all different sizes and stuff, that he's given us to use as silent auction items for some fundraising. We were getting absolutely amazing support from people. We've been invited to be a special exhibit at the Sisters Outdoor Quilt Show in July. We have 2 historic quilts that we have, one from 1913 and one from 1935 about. One of them comes from the Fryrear family. So we'll have a special exhibit for that. I fortunately write for the Nugget, so the paper and Sisters, and so we get a lot of good stories in there. A lot of coverage. Everybody knows we're doing a thing called Whispers from the Past a couple of times a month, where we're telling stories about the history of Sisters, and people are loving it. They're really enjoying that. As far as our finances go, we received our first grant, which was a fairly small one, last summer from the City of Sisters as kind of a way to get us started. We've been given a $1,000 challenge grant, which we're going to throw out to the audience in February and see what we can do. We have been invited by one of the largest foundations in Oregon to apply for a sizable grant. And so that's probably going to be the one that'll hopefully get us really going. We have supporters who are already, we're not calling them the members because we don't want to have members. That causes a lot of other problems. So we've started receiving, we're asking for $25 to be a supporter for the year. Most people are sending more than that. So that's a nice indication too. But we just wanted you to know that we're alive and well and kicking, and we look forward to working with you guys.
I have a question. This is Kelly Madden asking Sue a question. I just wanted to make sure that you know that May is Historic Preservation Month, and so if you want to get some stuff set up, I already know that the Land Trust is doing a walk. We're doing a walk with Jan at the Camp Polk Meadow, and there's other things going on. But if you wanted, because I heard you mentioning February, March, and and June, and I just don't know.
In May, we have been asked to be part of the COCC Lunch and Learn.
Okay,
and so we're going to be talking about what we're doing and who we are.
Okay, so you won't be doing any presentations or outings for the...
We're pedaling as fast as we can.
Okay, well, I'll just tell you this, then the first meeting is this Wednesday at noon at the museum.
We're going to be there.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, we know about that, so good.
And the second question is, where are you going to house the Three Sisters Historical Society?
Well, I'll let you know when we have our building.
Fabulous. Thank you very much.
We actually do have someone who is in conversations with us. But we're not ready to take one on yet. And I'll give these to you.
Thank you, Susan.
Susan, Sharon, where is your collection right now then? Is it still dispersed?
The Deschutes Museum has been very nice. They have actually told us they would love us to take some of the sisters' things off their hands because they don't have room for them. So some of it is there. Some of it is at my house, and some is at other people's homes. We don't really have a collection yet, and the 2 quilts are at the Deschutes Museum. Yeah.
Any other public comments?
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Jenna Walden. I'm speaking or commenting about the topic of the Central Oregon Canal Historic District Ward Road to Gosney segment. And I am commenting on the nomination and the procedural handling of our nomination on the county level and the state level. And it's been challenging to watch our nomination seem to be treated with some sort of prejudice. And I say that because the machinations behind the scenes have indicated that there are people who don't want this nomination to go forward. And as you know, the state recently tabled our nomination because of some procedural interpretation that they've now realized was an error that benefited the one objection to this nomination, which is Central Oregon Irrigation District. As you know, there's a memorandum of agreement with the Bureau of Reclamation and COID and SHPO to nominate stretches of the canal, and every canal, and historically preserve it. The nomination that COID put forward for Central Oregon Canal, the Brasada Spur, is eligible, true, but tabled. The Brasada Ranch is not going to cooperate with this nomination. So our Ward Road to Gosney Road segment nomination is the only nomination currently on the table that will fulfill this obligation. It has high integrity, and it is a very beautiful stretch of the canal. It should be preserved for future generations. I was very distressed to read certain comments from the commissioners that took COID's verbal comments at face values and as a reason to not support the nomination. For example, the COID said in this room months ago, back in October, that we had that this was one of the most highly repaired stretches of the canal, entire canal. There's no evidence of that. They have provided no evidence of that. I live there. I do not see repairs going on out there. And yet this was an excuse used to not support our nomination. And we have great concerns that our nomination will be treated fairly moving forward. So I am just letting you know that there is an Oregon Public Record request that I'm submitting. And I'm going to give the chairman a copy of this request, but it is going to be requesting all correspondence between the commissioners, the Board of Commissioners, and the County Department, Community Planning, Development Planning, and the COID staff. And this is going to be important for transparency so that we know we were treated fairly by this community. And we would really appreciate in the future, since we're going, SHPO is moving our nomination forward, that we get at least a fair understanding of what we're trying to preserve here. And we would really love to have, invite you guys to the properties, to walk it, to understand the historical significance and the integrity. So I really hope we can do this fairly, and unfortunately it has to come to something like this. But I want to give Ms. Horting-Jones this letter.
Chair, this is Zechariah Heck for the record. If you don't mind passing that along to staff, I'll give a copy of it to the commission, but any public records requests should go through staff. So we'll take it and follow up with you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. There are no other public comments. Let's move to number 4, Sisters Country Historic Resources Inventory.
All right. Well, commissioners, it's my pleasure to have Diana Painter here with me this evening. Diana is the contractor that the county hired to perform a reconnaissance level survey of non-surveyed buildings within the City of Sisters and rural Deschutes County, encompassing the school district area of buildings that are 45 years or older for their historic potential. Diana has a PowerPoint presentation this evening that she'd like to present to you, and then we'll be here for any conversations that you would like to have. I'd also, if possible, to have Patrick Davenport with the City of Sisters. He's here as well to carry on a dialogue with you and Diana for the project. So start the PowerPoint for you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll get there.
No, I'm not there with that yet. My brain.
All right, there you go.
Okay. Is this good sound-wise? Can everyone hear? Okay, I can. Oh, so, Zach, so this is, okay, got it. Well, yeah, I'm Diana Painter. I'm an architectural historian. I've been in business for 15 years in the Northwest and Northern California. And you may recognize my name as well because I worked for the SHPO for 5 years. And you may recognize my name, maybe some people, because Fred Painter who was my great uncle, was the police chief in Sisters in the 1950s and 60s. And this has turned into coincidentally, this has turned into a bit of a personal thing too, our personal mission in addition to looking forward to tackling the project and being here in beautiful Deschutes County. So I asked my brother, who has Fred Painter's things, his photos, if I could look at them before I came to see what's in there. And in the course of having Facebook, I had gotten in touch with an aunt that I haven't seen since I was a little kid, who lives in Crooked River. So I told her, hey, I'm going to be in Sisters, and we should meet. And she said she has Bodine Painter's scrapbooks, and so I will be taking a look at those as well. I looked through Fred Painter's stuff, and it's a lot of hunting pictures, this kind of guy stuff. So, I was hoping there's some more buildings in there. But anyway, it's been fun because I have reconnected with family through this as well. So this is just a brief PowerPoint. It reflects some analysis of the information that we have and the data that we have to date, and then it reiterates some of the questions or comments for discussion at the end that Zachariah had put into the staff report. So for the sake of discussion, I put them up on the screen so we can talk a little later. So the work that's been done to date is, recently to date, is the 2003 survey of Sisters and a few outlying properties in the school district that Pat worked on, and the young woman that you mentioned. And out of that survey, they surveyed 149 properties in Sisters and 7 properties in the school districts. And the dates of those, construction dates of those properties was 1900 to 1959. And I don't know how well you can see, but this is the map that the Oregon State Historic Sites database has for that survey. And let's see, I can see myself. The blue dots are listed or eligible properties. In other words, they had sufficient integrity to be considered potentially eligible either individually or as contributors to a district. And the red properties, which were considered not eligible properties. So there you can kind of see the pattern in downtown Sisters of the results of that survey in 2003. And by the way, just for your information, I took the scans of the records for every property that was surveyed, a 4-page form was developed on information on that property. And I made those into separate scans that will now be uploaded in the next few months onto the database. So anyone who had a property in Sisters that was surveyed will be able to look up the old records. And that's valuable for individuals because the old records, the old way of doing it, provided a lot more background than the new way of doing it, which is more streamlined and moves a lot faster. But so anyway, in the next few months, you can download information on your property from the Oregon Historic Sites database. And the Historic Sites database, I don't know how many of you have used that, but it's a great resource. They have listed 166 properties in Sisters vicinity, and 4 of which are listed in the National Register. 2 of them are segments of the Santiam Wagon Road. And these are some initial maps just to give you a sense of the information that we're pulling together that Zachariah prepared. This shows the properties for which we have assessor records with construction dates mapped by decade. So as you can see, the properties that we are going to be focusing on for the fact that they've never been surveyed before are the properties that were constructed between 1960 and 1973. 1960 dovetails or abuts the construction dates of 1900 to 1959 that were part of the 2003 survey. And then the ones that haven't been surveyed yet but are over 45 years of age are the properties dating in the 1960 to 1973. And you can kind of see some of those outlying areas. Kind of stands to reason that I don't know if you can get the cursor to point on this thing, like that some of these newer properties are, a lot of them are concentrated a little bit outside the core area. That's the yellow, and then the kind of aqua color is scattered around a bit. But also it looks like it's a little bit, spreading to the outskirts of the city there. So this is a map that shows those dates. And does everyone understand how we came up with those dates? It's it's where that previous survey left off all the way to 45 years and older. So you get 1960 to 1973 properties usually have it's beyond mid-century modern. It's it's in the modern era for sure. And so this map shows the Sisters city limits with those properties mapped. Again, the only ones that are mapped there, they're blue and green. Oops, sorry. And here's a bit of a close-up so you can see it a little better, focusing in a little better. And so you can see they're kind of scattered around, which we're going to do a tour tomorrow and end up talking to some of the Sisters Historical Society, 3 Sisters Historical Society folks, and Patrick and Zach, and look, touring around, looking at the area. You can see that they're a little bit scattered around, and that can lead to challenges sometimes in just the logistics of surveying something. It just takes a little longer. And then here's by decade, but the whole school district. Again, the modern properties that have never been surveyed before are blue and purple on this map. And you can see, again, some of the newer properties and some of the outlying areas. And so this is just a statistical analysis of the information that we got through the assessor's office, and there was a large number of properties that didn't have a construction date. There's different kinds of surveys for different purposes depending on what your goals are. Some surveys you'll go property by property in like a neighborhood or a town and get a sense of exactly what's in there within a certain boundary. If you're working on selected properties, as we are here, it makes it a little more challenging because you don't have a date, then you don't have the mapping. So we're working on that right now. So the number of properties in Sisters in vicinity, and that's how the Oregon Sites Historic Database characterizes it, constructed between 1960 and 1973 is about 500. The number of properties with a Sisters address, and again, this is a post office address, so I don't know physically where they sit on the ground yet. I will know that. between 1960 and 1973 is 225. So if we took that as a core survey area, we would have the goal of making sure that the 149 properties are up to date. In other words, they haven't changed substantially. And then making sure that we capture those properties within Sisters that have never been surveyed before but are also of the age threshold. And then the number of properties in Sisters and Sisters School District with no construction date is 3,000. So you can see the logistical issues there. And the number of properties with a Sisters address with no construction date noted in assessor records is 2,000. So again, we're in the project defining phase, which is where you guys come in and help us focus on that. So target properties in Sisters School District, selected properties of all ages. Again, this is by decade, and it's not the school district. It's a tighter area than that. I think that's a misnomer there. So by decade, this maps the by decade in that focus area. And these are some of the goals that we could have for the project to map contributing and non-contributing map properties in Sisters dating from 1900 to 1973, which is the whole scope of the survey in the past plus a current survey. Another goal is identifying areas with concentrations of properties that are eligible and over 45 years of age. And the green circle here is just illustrative. It's like, well, if you see all these, these little blue dots, where does that leave you? Do you have a concentration at all? And then documenting appropriate historic context for these areas, both geographic and temporal in time. And these are possible additional goals. This is taken right out of your staff report. So it's I put them on a couple sheets here, a couple slides, just for discussion purposes. So documenting buildings and sites that may contribute to the region's history, identify buildings and sites that might be worthy of local, state, or possibly national recognition, developing a template for evaluating other regions of rural Deschutes County not recently documented for their historic potential, and we'll be talking about that further tomorrow as well. Engage property owners about historic significance of their properties, which will come out of the survey process as well. And by the way, there's a really good, and I wrote it, so I guess I shouldn't say it that way. There's a document that I think works quite well on how to outreach to communities about historic preservation, particularly when you're nominating a district. And what it does, there's a couple of them actually. There's a lot of advice on the state's website, but it targets both presumably younger people and older people, because it makes the point that there's a lot of ways to communicate and you have to know your audience. And then these are the other items from the staff report. Good possibilities are highlighting the benefits of city and county surveys, identifying areas and Sisters that have unique historic characteristics warranting historic district designation, and we'll certainly be doing that. Providing suggestions to the city and county on policies and instruments that can retain, sorry, there's a typo there, these historic buildings and landscapes. And again, the State Historic Preservation Office has a lot of information that's available on that. And identify data gaps and opportunities in Sisters in the rural county that should be addressed with an RLS, or intensive level survey. And we will definitely, we're in the process of doing that now, just starting with the information available. So are there any slides that I should keep up for purposes of discussion when we, so I'll just leave that up there. And I want to be able to take notes about any comments you might have, so I'm going to sit down.
You reference data entry. What database are you referring to? I must have missed that.
The survey information goes on the Oregon Historic Sites database.
That's what you were talking about. Okay. This is a huge project.
Oh, I know. That's.
I mean, we're just going.
Process of defining it.
Yeah, and you're a single owner of a company. How are you going to do this by yourself, or are you going to get help?
Well, I was telling Zachariah, I often work by myself, but if it's a big project, like I did worked on the Oregon, in 2011, Oregon City survey, and there were some other tasks there too, and it was 1,800 properties, and there were 2 of us, but it was a challenge, yeah. Yeah, Oregon has a streamlined process for survey though, thankfully. And it goes fairly quickly, actually, but we're trying to define it so it's manageable and will give a good products to the county and the city, and also good next steps that are in achievable bites also.
Patrick, is this going to be able to interface with what you have already, data-wise?
To interface how?
With what data you have on your historic structures in town, in Sisters?
Oh, sure. We've shared about everything we have. We realize this, which isn't very much, but it is small town, you know. But yeah, we're ready. I have I don't want to say plenty of time, but I've got time reserved to help with this project. So I know she's working this alone, but we've got great county staff to work with, and I can devote some good quantity time. I don't know how quality it'll be, but good quantity.
Anybody else?
Curious about the outer edge. Sisters, you're going to survey some of the properties that would be in county and not necessarily in the city boundary.
Did you want to speak to that? Or?
Thank you, Commissioner. That's exactly the reason I came up. Staff had a really good meeting prior to this meeting with Diane about the scope of the project, and because it is so large potentially, and so we talked about narrowing it. Once she begins to really get a good feel for, and you already have a feel for Sisters, but you have a good sense of how many properties and the magnitude of the project tomorrow after the tour, that we really might need to limit the scope to, for example, just the city of Sisters, and limit the surrounding areas to a future stage, which is why she mentioned that part of what we talked about is let's really achieve what is achievable in this project and do it well, and then have, as part of this, have some next steps, which could be the next CLG grant or other steps, because we really want this to be manageable for her. We want it to be successful for our program, for the community. And so both great questions, exactly what we just discussed.
I have a question. This is Kelly Madden. And the question I have is those outlier areas, do they extend down to like Cloverdale and Plainview and Gist and all that? Because I don't know, just visually, I couldn't see very well where the lines are, or I don't know where the limits of Sisters are.
Our boundary for the scope of work was the school district, the sister school district. And so
Which goes a long way. Okay. I mean, it's almost to Camp Sherman. It's
right.
It includes Black Butte. It comes almost to Tumalo, almost to Holmes Road. And this is the boundary. This is the same boundaries as the Sisters Country Vision Plan that Patrick and I are both involved with. And that's why as a starting point, we just didn't have a sense of the magnitude. And as soon as she started to look at it and we started to look at it, we thought, okay, let's maybe take a step back and revise it. And we're so grateful that SHPO is flexible with the funding and revising the scope as necessary throughout the LACMA project so that it is achievable.
This is Kelly again. And the question I have is Sisters Country boundary the same as Sisters School District boundary? Okay, that's what I never knew what Sisters Country was. I got it. Okay, thank you very much.
Nick, this is Sharon Lechte. What is this bringing us into compliance with something that we were in compliance with, or is it just a phased priority? Not just, but you know what I mean, as far as how we choose what we're going to do with the resources we have.
I think this is just a project that the Historic Landmarks Commission identified with staff a couple of years ago to begin to look at various areas of the county, to really begin with the reconnaissance level survey, build on some of the great work that's previously been done with the limited resources we have. So it does coincide so nicely with the Sisters Country a vision plan. This is the first I'd heard about the new Historical Society tonight. What perfect timing.
Yeah.
I mean, stars are aligned on this, and I think we're very, very fortunate. But we're in compliance otherwise with. Yeah.
This will help us when our comprehensive plan update get kicked off maybe late 2019 for that statewide goal on that. Very, very timely, huge help for us.
You know, that this isn't a mandate or anything, it's priority work. Thank you.
I have a question with regard to how this, will this survey be a bridge to the online documentation that, will it, as part of this scope of work, or will it be additional?
It would be probably additional, but I was actually the one who worked on that online database, so that would be a great opportunity for me to follow up and
Yes,
update
it would.
So. Get on that.
Yeah.
Intern Heck a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Assistant planner, now associate planner. Yes. So.
Diana, can you go through a little bit of the step-by-step process as far as, like, I understand what, tomorrow's kind of visiting some of the sites and documenting findings and whatnot, but how do you get from that stage to truly identifying contributing structures and stuff like that? What is some of the guidelines or things that you do to kind of weed out structures that really probably aren't applicable?
Well, the state has, like I said, kind of a streamlined process for survey.
Right.
And a reconnaissance level survey only documents like about 8 characteristics of a property. It's very limited. And then, of course, you've got photographs and a map. With a footprint on it, ideally, is what they like to see. When you start at the reconnaissance level, you record just the physical appearance, so you're making judgments about the contributing, non-contributing of the building just based on, is it constructed in the time frame you're looking at, and does it have integrity? And so anything more about the building isn't considered at that point. It might have a really interesting historic story, but that's beyond the scope of what you're doing right then. And what the state does, then usually, oftentimes, and we can choose to buy into this or not, because the process needs to fit your own needs, is they often will select then, based on the goals of that particular project, a few properties that they do intensive level surveys on, and make a determination as to whether they're eligible for listing individually on the National Register, or part of a district, or reveal some representative information about a particular area, maybe a neighborhood. So that's often the process that communities will go through. I kind of think we're going to have a different process here, because we've got to get our heads around and arms around the geographic scope and the diversity of the properties that you have.
Okay.
And when did you hope to have a draft ready,
Well,
or something to present?
something to talk about. Well, initially, that kind of targeted Preservation Week to have some kind of presentation on our findings, or our findings to date. I think I'll have a better sense tomorrow if after tomorrow, I mean, if I think the survey part is achievable, which I think should include a update of the 2003, just to get current photo, just real quick. Does it look like it looked 15 years ago? And then the scope of work also calls for some historic context. And that also needs to be, the resources shall inform what kind of context you want to develop. And because the scope targeted the modern properties that haven't been surveyed yet, it'll be interesting to see what that brings to light. because there's been a lot of growth in Sisters in modern times. So that's got its own story and its own trajectory. So it'll be really interesting to see what we target in terms of background for the survey. That kind of fleshes it out and tells the story. You've got the data, and then you've got, well, what does this tell you, and why is it important?
Well, it sounds like an exciting project, and we are all looking forward to hearing back from you.
There you go.
Thank you, Diana. Okay, how about an update on the Klein Falls Power Plant kiosk?
Maybe I should just go with you, because I have to, if I get any field work done at all, I have to.
You probably know how to, you know where you're at?
Get my
Okay, I can get it.
data together.
Good evening. I'm Craig Harrell, the Managing Director at Central Oregon Irrigation District. I have Sean Ray, who's the Deputy Manager, and Lisa Lee, who does a lot of our historic inventory and basically everything to do with historic organization with our district. So about a year and a half ago, I believe, is when I was in front of you asking for permission to take down the Klein Falls Dam. It had run its course, and it was time to have the river free-flowing in that area again. So we have done that. The other part was, I think, was it this summer or early summer, the commission went out and did a site visit, and we talked about what we wanted to do there with kiosk and mitigation to make it overlook where the dam used to be. So I'll have Sean play the video first, and then we'll go through where we're at with. In 1910, Klein Falls Dam was built, and it was built for the purpose of providing water and power to a potential Klein Falls town site. In 1913, the dam was moved to Deschutes Irrigation and Power Company ownership. And at that time, they signed a 100-year lease with Pacific Power and Light. What happened from there was Pacific Power and Light leased it for 100 years and operated it to generate power for Klein Falls and for other surrounding areas like Redmond. In 1910, the engineering that was around was to provide rock crib dams, which was where you pile boulders up and build a wood dam that is leaning against the rock. In 1942, a decision was made to build a new powerhouse to generate more power for the war effort. 10 years later, a 5-foot tall dam was built to generate even more power for the city of Redmond. In 2010, Pacific Power decided to abandon the site, and Central Oregon Irrigation District started negotiations, and we came to an agreement, and what you see today is fruitful negotiations between Central Oregon Irrigation and Pacific Power.
Central Oregon Irrigation District approached us when they wanted to remove the dam, and they knew that the Watershed Council had some experience with dam removals, and so we helped the district in finding the right consultant that had the right experience for removing dams and overseeing all aspects of dam removal, not only on the design, but also on the front end with permitting and so on.
Klein Falls dam removal was not technically challenging because it did not have a lot of sediment in the reservoir that was going to be released, and it's located on a bedrock waterfall as well. However, it did present other difficulties in that it has a powerhouse that required cleanup, and then also a historical perspective or component that we had to deal with in preserving the history of the site. Once the area is isolated and defished, then we move into the dam or the concrete removal. In this case, they were using a hoe pick and or shears or large crushers to break the concrete apart, and then they go through after that and clean it up, making sure that all of the steel, the rebar, the concrete is all removed. There's always, or typically always, a wooden structure upstream of it, and this was no different at Klein Falls. We found a 107-year-old wood structure, and we were able to easily remove that at the same time as we removed the concrete structure. As we enter into this last phase of restoration of the site, it'll be about another month here. All the foundations will be gone, and then we'll move into a revegetation plan that restores and makes the site conducive to long-term restoration and revegetation.
What we see behind us is the wetland that slowly over time has developed behind what once was Klein Falls Dam. And our vision over time, and I think the Irrigation District shares that with us, is to restore the natural function of the site here at Klein Falls.
Central Oregon Irrigation District felt strongly about the social responsibility. We are ecstatic, our patrons, our board, the community, to put this river back to its natural state after 100 years.
So that's where we're at today. Thank you very much for supporting that. Where we're headed is I was going to let Lisa talk through. We've taken some of the components that were saved and just kind of talk through the elements that we have here that we're trying to incorporate with the kiosk.
Well, one of the things at COI that I really appreciate is we're really proud of our history, and so it was really important for us to preserve parts of that. So of the structure that we're going to have, we've incorporated some of the parts that we were able to salvage out of the site itself. So this part of the this round thing there is part of the penstock. So when we were on, I remember most of it was gone when we were on the site, but the penstock might have still been there. So it went through the channel and then it went down the penstock. Yeah, I think it was August. Wasn't it August? Yeah. And so we were able to salvage a big chunk of that, and it's 8 feet in diameter. And so what we'll have is this structure is the platform where the tainter gates were. So the radial gates that raised and lowered, the structure that would allow the water to flow into that channel. And so we've preserved that, and that's where the information will be, pictures of some of the old pictures that we have from the 20s, and then the different versions of the power plant and the history that went along with that. And so that'll be housed in this structure, and some of it was in pretty rough shape, but they did a pretty amazing job of getting it out of there in one piece. And then the rest of it, so parking will be over here, and remember that kind of top area that we were at, that'll be the parking. And then you'll walk through the platform here, and then walk through the penstock to get to the viewing platform. And I have to commend our board because they went with the more elaborate structure, which kind of surprised me, but they did anyway. And so it'll be raised, and if you remember, the site was pretty sloped.
Right.
And it was it was a pretty difficult site to find enough level area for this. And so with this platform being kind of built out, will be raised up a little bit and out, so you'll be able to overlook. And so we'll have, kind of before and after pictures of it. And I was just up there on Friday, and the falls, if you get a chance to get out there, it's fabulous because it's flowing the way it used to flow, and some of those old pictures before the dams, before anything else was there, the river was just raging through there, and it's doing that again, and it's very satisfying to see that.
So where we're at right now is the funding. So right now we have lots of things that we are trying to work on funding for, but we have secured a grant writer to look for some opportunities for matching grants from COID. The board went with the more elaborate, higher dollar one with the understanding that we would look for grants to help fund that. So if you have any ideas on grants, we would love to hear them, but we're gonna start to pursue that. I think when we get ready to do construction, we would just notify the commission. It'll just be when we get the money, we would apply for permits and come to the county. So thank you. Yes.
This is Kelly. I have a couple questions. Do you know yet who you're going to be using for your native plants?
It was in the construction contract, you mean for the restoration along the river?
Right, because because of the Deschutes Land Trust, I work with them pretty closely, and when we've done all that restoration in Whitejuice Canyon and all that, we've had people come pick the little seeds and grow the plants and then come back and plant thousands of them, so I don't know if you're...
Yeah, we worked with the Upper Deschutes.
Okay.
Yeah, so they probably did.
Okay.
I wasn't tracking that, but we worked with Matthias very closely.
Okay, thank you. And then the second question I have is, any of this area located within the Klein Falls Recreation Area? And are you guys affiliated with any of that has to do with, working with BLM or any of that to promote that? Because there's a historic canal district inside that area, and there's also flumes and stuff there.
No, we're not affiliated with that on this property.
Okay.
So,
is that property within the boundary?
No.
Okay.
No. Our hope is to find a way. So we don't want this structure just sitting up there and us COID managing it.
Right.
So we believe there's probably a better, more public owner of that land, and we haven't figured that one out yet. Mm-hmm. And then we would probably help pay to manage that, whoever takes over that land.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's the thought, at least.
I have a question about its placement. Is this platform at road grade, or is it sit down on one of the tiers below that?
I think our understanding is that where you pull off and park would be at road grade, and you would walk through, and then as the slope kind of falls away, you would use that slope and have the piers where you would have the overlook.
The platform would be a little farther out so that you would actually get the view. If you had it right at road grade, you wouldn't be able to see much down to the river. So it pretty much has to be at that kind of that second level and out a little bit.
It does appear from the rendering to be ADA accessible, so I think
Yes, it will be.
Yeah, no, that was
that part of it.
Yeah.
The platform
Right.
will be, yes.
It also looks like it might, something to consider is for funding wise, maybe if it's something that could be phased, maybe do like a part one up to the 8-foot wide, portion, and then maybe the platform itself gets constructed at a later date.
Our board feels strongly enough that this is important to put in, so it won't be phased. It will be done as the rendering. So I don't want to do half and just say, oh,
yay,
promises. Yay. No, we would do the whole thing all at the same time.
Looks great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much. Good job.
It's going to look great when it's done.
Mm-hmm.
They have barbecues out there?
For the open house. Item number 6, alterations to the Sotong House and Barn.
Again, for the record, Zechariah Heck, and I worked on 2 minor alterations on the Sotong House since we last convened in October. The first alteration involved replacements of some of the original windows that were single pane windows of the original Sotong House, and then the chimney of the original house was falling over. So the property owners were concerned about that, wanted to repair it, and so they went through the land use process to do so. The second minor alteration involved an addition of the original house in 2005. So a rather large dwelling, and this was an addition to the master bedroom on the far end of the original house. The owners of the property and the building designer are very supportive of historic preservation, and so they kept everything. They matched the existing design per the Interior Secretary's design standards, and I forwarded the commission the findings and decisions for each one of the minor alterations. So this agenda item was just an update, and if an opportunity for the commission to ask staff if you had any concerns or comments you would like to share.
Was the full fireplace rebuilt, or was it just repaired in portion?
My understanding is they had to rebuild it.
They did, yeah. So they put reinforcing in. And,
And is this right here the master bedroom?
Yeah, so where they cleared the floor, they're adding about, I think it was 200 or 300
And
square
this is
feet.
the
So
back side of it or the other side of it?
that is, the bottom right photo of your memo packet shows the connection, actually. So in 2005,
It's like a gallery that goes to the
yeah,
master.
the county approved a significant addition to the original house, and that's where the new 2005 addition connects to the original Sotong house. But overall, I thought the process worked very smoothly in communicating with Chair Hording-Jones and working with the designer to understand the historical significance of the project, and we didn't receive any opposition, so it went by pretty smoothly.
Do you know if this work is done on the fireplace?
Well, I did a site visit probably 2 weeks ago, and they were just finishing up that. I mean, those are photos of the site visit, so not quite finished. So they were working in progress.
Well, Madam Chair, are we taking action on this, or is this just information?
Just for information. Thank you, Zach. Historic Preservation Month planning and the Oregon Heritage Conference.
This is another opportunity for the commission to discuss with staff and amongst yourself what type of activities the commission would like to see for the May event, and also an opportunity to talk about the Heritage Conference in April. It's hosted in Bend this year. And so there's, Commissioner-elect, you mentioned that you're doing some sort of volunteer effort on that. So just wanted to provide an opportunity for the commission to discuss any thoughts or ideas you might have.
Zach, this is Kelly, and I would be glad to, if anyone wants me to lead a tour during that time for the people that come. I could do, you can ask Peter and Nick or some of these others which ones they like. And I'd be more than happy to do that if people want that, if it ties in with the theme or whatever's going on. The Heritage Conference. The Preservation Month, I've got a bunch of those too, so.
I think for the Heritage Conference, they might already,
They have the
they have
schedule
their
already?
schedule pretty much set
Okay.
up, as far as I know.
Well, then never mind.
But it's worth asking.
Yeah, I can volunteer
Sure.
then.
And there are some tours already set up for the Heritage Conference too, so.
Tomorrow, I think all of you know, but for the record, there's a historic month, May Preservation Month planning meeting.
Wednesday, not tomorrow.
Wednesday. Yes, Wednesday at noon. So probably out of that meeting, we'll have some other ideas to do.
Right.
We're a little bit behind schedule. Usually we get started and our kickoff meeting is usually sometime in January, but everyone's been so busy. But so yeah, this will be the first meeting to just kind of convene, throw out ideas, see what kind of interest there is, and it sounds like I already know of a couple of items that or events that are going to probably happen. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what other stuff comes up. So. I don't think we've really decided on one for this year, just kind of being that it was in conjunction with the Heritage Conference. We were sort of going to just kind of piggyback off of that a bit, but that might be in discussion on Wednesday. So.
And Zach, this is Kelly again. To tie into all the sisters stuff, I've been working with the Land Trust to see, besides myself, who's leading tours. And there's going to be 5 tours for the Land Trust in May, and every one of them is in the sisters country.
Oh, wow.
So, and if Sue needs a list of those, I can give her one.
Preservation.
Please.
I just pulled up the Heritage Conference website, and it looks like the early bird registration is mid-March, so, and then it continues on. So yeah, it'd be great to know who's interested in attending so we can budget accordingly and certainly support your attending. So, and it looks like there's a lot of little add-ons for $10 or up to $30 here and there, but it looks great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I am planning on going.
All right. Yeah, I was going to say, raise of hands, who's interested in going? I can. All right, everybody. All right.
Not.
But it is just the, we could just Google the Oregon Historic Preservation.
And register, yeah.
Okay.
Unless you have a role in conference.
Great. And there's going to be several of us at that meeting on Wednesday, too.
Yes, sounds like it.
Are you going to be there on Wednesday?
Yes,
Okay.
I will be there.
Shall I bake something?
Yes, please.
3 or 4 big cakes like this, Kelly.
It is lunch.
That-
It is lunchtime after all.
Afterwards, you can tell me your requests.
Is there any other items? Oh, did you want to talk briefly about our thing that we went to in October?
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned that. So, Chair Hording Jones and I attended a SHPO-sponsored meeting, and when was that? October?
I think so.
And
In
I took
Canby.
copious notes. We can't find them right now, but the
Yeah, me neither.
as you know, this is a new role for me, and so it was a great introduction for staff to interface with SHPO and understand their process and each CLG's responsibilities as well, and what staff can provide. It was also great to see what other communities are working on and sort of take ideas from what they're working on. As you all are probably aware of, a lot of CLGs are in cities, and so we're unique as a county to have a CLG, and it means that we have to be extra creative when it comes to projects we take on. We did a walking tour, which I thought was really cool to see downtown Canby. We had one of the staff members of the Department of Land Conservation and Development provide an update on some recent state bills that passed last year's legislature that are at least somewhat tied to historic dwellings. One of them affords accessory dwelling units if one can designate a historic structure on site. And then there was a summary of implementation of Goal 5, which I will be following up on where that goes. So those are on a high level of my general comments.
Perfect, thank you.
I thought it was really helpful from a local entity view. Plus, we got to put names to faces.
Yeah.
The SHPO folks, so that was helpful to me. And I got to know Zach really well for the drive over and back.
Drove over there and back in one day.
Yeah, it was a long day.
Road trip conversation.
Some of us do that every week. Pity over here.
Any other comments by the commission or staff? Peter.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, for the record, Peter Gutowski. I wanted to just follow up on some statements that Ms. Cleaver made at the public comment, and it's in response to an email that staff received, as well as all the parties that are affiliated with the Central Oregon Canal, just after 5 today. And essentially, the State Historic Preservation Office found that there are National Park Service guidelines that clarify that a preparer, nominee, can resubmit a nomination when it is substantially revised. And so earlier in the year, in January, there was a different understanding of that, that when a Historic Landmarks Commission and the elected body decline a nomination, that decision ran with the property. Instead, it runs with the nomination itself. So Ian Johnson with the State Historic Preservation Office did acknowledge that this will be an agenda item before the State Advisory Committee on Historic Preservation in June. And so Zechariah will likely schedule a meeting with this commission in April, as well as the Board of County Commissioners, to again afford you the opportunity to review the nomination materials. It'll be a public meeting, so certainly any of the residents that live along the canal should testify, and likely will, as they did before in October, as well as the irrigation district. So there'll be a public process for that, as all of you are familiar with. And then the same process will be afforded the county commissioner to the extent that they want to do a public meeting or rely on the HLC nomination in a work session.
I just have a question for clarification. This is Kelly. Will it be just the second draft of that first one that we saw, or have there been others? I don't know. Remember the meeting when we saw the first copy, and then we were told at that meeting that that wasn't the one we were supposed to be looking at. So I don't know how many there have been.
We will clarify. I know Ms. Cleaver just passed out some materials, and I presume that that's the modified nomination. We'll make sure that, we'll get the materials that the SHPO provided us, and to the extent that there's any inconsistencies, we would coordinate with Ms. Cleaver and her team. But we'll make sure, I appreciate Ms. Cleaver's desire to give it to you well in advance. We'll also schedule the meeting well in advance, a month ahead of time, and confirm that the materials that she provided you are what's before you. And that way it's there's no confusion about it. But it's specifically on the modification. I mean, they have modified their nomination, and I presume that the materials before you and what we'll confirm will substantiate what those differentiations were, since that'll be what's before you. So just wanted to clarify that. Again, this is, we got this correspondence late in the day, and, there'll be an opportunity to review it again. Thank you.
I have a question.
Thank you for the clarification.
How often can this go on? How many times can this happen?
Good question. It's my understanding that each nomination gets afforded one opportunity to submit it formally through the state. In the event that that nomination ultimately is declined, then that ends it for further review. However, it's my understanding that either significantly or substantially modified, I put that in quotes, is defined in statute. So if the preparer finds that there's new evidence that warrants a modification that meets that statutory definition, then they can do it. They could reinitiate again one time. So because it's defined in statute, it's more than just, it has to be more than just, I suspect, superfluous circumstances. It has to be something substantial, and if that's the case, then it could continue.
Commissioners, I have more procedural updates just for you. I'm sorry. Oh, please.
So the status now on the COID request that Pat has, Ms. Cleaver has prepared, what is the status? It is approved, or it's still moving forward?
That is a very good question. I'm going to give you my understanding as it exists today. I believe there was an opportunity to appeal the original nomination. The State Historic Preservation Office made errors in how they handled that process. My understanding is that appeal has expired. But because they've now received feedback from the National Park Service, you could call it an appeal or you could call it a modification of nomination. The fact is it's now being modified, and it will be put before the State Advisory Committee of Historic Preservation for their meeting in June, which renders a second opportunity for this board and this committee and the Board of County Commissioners to revisit the nomination again.
When is our input?
Yeah, we have a 60-day comment period, and we want to use that appropriately. So, I'm making an educated guess. We'll probably schedule it for the first, probably after Easter. I don't know where Easter falls, but the first Monday. Is it this? Yeah, so I would suspect it would be scheduled. This is just a guess, and Zechariah will confirm the first Monday in April. And that'll afford enough time for this. We'll make sure that there's enough time for this committee to hold a public meeting, take testimony, and if you need time to deliberate, for a subsequent meeting that we can schedule, we can do that. So we will be mindful of that 60 days, and likewise, we'll want to do the same thing with the Board of County Commissioners. So I have an anticipated conference call with Ian Johnson probably in the middle of March to understand all these nuances, but all things being equal, I suspect the meetings will occur in April, and a decision by this body and the Board of County Commissioners will occur that month as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, back to the
process.
procedural
Yeah,
process stuff. So a couple of you have terms that expire at the end of next month. And so one of the things that I do with the Board of County Commissioners each year as commissioners' terms expire, I ask them how they want to proceed. And generally and often they reappoint commissioners that are interested. Last year they changed course a bit with the Planning Commission, and they decided that commissioners had been on there for some period of time. Even planning commissioners have term limits, landmarks commissioners do not. And I think they surprised the candidate a little bit by initiating a recruitment. Not that they were seeking to replace that person, but they just thought, let's see if anybody else is interested. Nobody else was, and that commissioner was reappointed. But I just share that with you that I'm not hearing. But sometimes commissioners can take this as kind of startling or jarring. Wow, are they not happy with? Well, no. So what I'm doing right now is there are two vacancies. There are two planning commissioners and two landmarks commissioners, both of whom have terms that expire this year. All I do is I ask the Board of County Commissioners, do they want to proceed toward reappointment, or do they want to proceed toward a recruitment, which everybody can reapply? That's just the question I ask. The Landmarks Commission question needs to be answered soon because it's the end of next month. The Planning Commission, it's at the end of June. So I'll have a response, I would expect, within the next week or so that we have some idea, because it could affect this whole process. We don't want to start, should somebody choose not to be reappointed or the board go in a different direction, which I have not heard that's what they would do at all. I would rather us not be training new people while we're going through a process like this. So we'll make sure that those timelines are aligned. But again, no concerns, et cetera. And I know that, for example, as our code states with the Pioneer Association, the code requires the county to look at the Pioneer Association for a recommendation, and then the board appoints that person. Just like the board doesn't even appoint the sisters, the city council appoints the sisters. So in any event, I share all that information with them. 1/3 of the Board of County Commissioners has turned over since the last time we had terms that expire. So sometimes they just require, and they like to have just how does this process work, and why do we do it, and what's the background? But the other commissioners might as well. I don't know. Again, last year they initiated the recruitment for the Planning Commission. So I just share that with you, and I'll keep you in loop. Just the two of you and Commissioner Olson have your terms that expire this year.
Oh, really?
Yeah. 40% of the commission. Yeah, no.
I'm kidding.
Yeah, and so again, I'm not hearing any concerns whatsoever, but I'd let you know that I keep.
Well, would you? I for the record, then, if I would be interested in staying on. Great,
that's helpful to know. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I can share that with them. So perfect. That's the first. The second, I've got a couple of them. One, and there's nothing really to report, but not reporting on is still reporting. The legislative session started today. I always go through and I participate heavily in the county's legislative activities. I'm not seeing any legislative proposals that address historic preservation, historic landmarks, statutes, rules, et cetera, as we did, for example, in the prior session. And it's much more common in the regular session, to have one or two, and generally there's not a lot that changes, but the last couple of years there have been a couple.
There's an indication, House Bill 43 something has to do with historic preservation?
It has to deal with, I'm sorry?
Historic preservation?
I can check, I've got.
Have that. It's House Bill 4 something. I just caught wind of that.
Oh, so there may be something that I was not aware of. I went through them possibly too quickly, but I can 43 something or other.
Something like that, 4 something.
Okay, well, I appreciate your letting me know, because I may have.
I've got it. I can send you that tomorrow if you want me to.
Yeah, that's great. I definitely want to be able to know so that I can share the board with the board, and I'll probably go back and.
All these extra legislative sessions, what's the term for them?
The short session or the. Is often. It's limited by statute to 35 days. So, okay, so thank you, Commissioner. I really appreciate that, because I had looked at them quickly, and clearly I may have missed one, and maybe it's, sometimes I don't catch them if it's dealing with financing, but still, it's great for me to know and to share that with the board. Another is with the Planning Commission, we're going to create, I go through a very extensive training with all new planning commissioners, and I think we may have gone through something with you, and I know not long after we created the Deschutes County Landmarks Commission, a separate from the others, we had a number of organizations here, and we went through a lot of good training, but we haven't done much of that for the procedural kind of, I know it's the formality, about how you make decisions and Robert's Rules of Order and public meetings and ethics and public records and all that good stuff. So I want to be committed to you to begin to just to keep you up to date on that, because sometimes if you're not thinking about it all the time like I am, it's easy to forget about it. And one model that I found that I'm going to work on with the Planning Commission, and I would imagine elements of it might be applicable to our Landmarks Commission, because I'd like to create a separate one for our Landmarks Commission. It's just a Landmarks Commission Policy and Procedures Manual. It's based on the code, but it's also just kind of, the Planning Commissioners really raised it recently, and it was so valuable because I think 6 of the 7 members have turned over in the last few years. They a lot of them, I go through the orientation, and then they're kind of thrown into a meeting, and it's, okay, now I can't remember, and I've got this binder. And they can ask me, but sometimes, in a meeting it's awkward. So I'm committed to creating a more succinct, and I'll just give you the City of Madison's example. And again, this is just a big picture kind of template that, and I'd like to work on something like this with a couple of you. So as your commissioners, gosh, it would sure be great to know that someday when I'm not on here, the person that replaces me should know this, or if you're sitting up there and it's like, boy, we haven't been through this process again for some time. I can't remember what document do we reference, or how do we make this motion, or who do we contact, or what's the purpose? The chair said tonight, what's the purpose of the public comment, as opposed to something else. So in any event, I hope something like that's helpful. That's something we'll begin to embark on this spring, and certainly look forward to working with you on that. The issue of public records, just 2 comments on that. One is, if you ever, and I really appreciate the public records request being submitted to you this evening, which could be shared with our staff. It happened to the Planning Commission a couple of weeks ago, totally separate issue, but somebody said, look, we want to submit a records request. It's what we do with it as staff, just so everybody's aware. We give it to County Legal Counsel. County Legal Counsel then asks whoever the applicable departments are, in this case, Board of County Commissioners, staff, Landmarks Commissioners, how much time is it going to take in order to gather any records that you may have? They then create a cost estimate, because there is a fee and there's a deposit that a public records request must accompany. It's common. We do this, county, city, state, do this all the time. And then they just, what might the estimate be? Here's the deposit, and then they will contact the party that's issued the public records request to say, we'll begin to look at gather the public records upon receiving the deposit based on their estimate. So that's kind of one piece. The second piece is, if you are requested for public records outside of a process like this, please just contact staff. What we do is, again, we automatically work with County Legal Counsel, and they're the entity in the county that's responsible for orchestrating that process, just so that it continues to change, state law continues to change, requirements continue to change. They stay up on that. They keep us informed, and our goal is to then keep you informed, Planning Commission, the board, et cetera. And they do have 5 days in which to respond once they receive a request. So Zechariah will give the request immediately to Adam Smith tomorrow, and then that kicks in our initial process. So I just wanted to give you some of the procedural background, what's happening, and
Quick question. This is Kelly. As an ex officio, am I exempt from that?
I don't think so, because you're still appointed by the board.
Okay. Even though I don't vote, I'm still totally commissioned. And okay, thank you.
I think the key is, if you have the privilege of sitting up there, you have the privilege of participating in. Okay. Yes.
Thank you for clarifying that.
You're welcome. I'm happy to answer any other questions. We're in the process now of kicking off our budget, our work plan. I expect. Now that you will have another meeting prior to May, maybe we'll move up the work plan discussion and presentation with you prior to then. But otherwise, we generally have that at your May meeting where we talk about the prior year's accomplishments, resources, projects on the horizon for the next year, get your input, and go forward. So it'll be this spring. It'll either be at your special meeting or in May. So I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Thank you for doing this. I think it was about 5 years ago when this county HLC was first formed. We had a training one night at Heidi, which was really helpful, but that was 5 years ago, and I'm old and I don't remember things like I used to. So I would be glad to help you.
Thank you.
If you need
That's
assistance.
Welcome it. Thank you.
Nick,
Thank
a
you.
couple years ago, a couple summers ago, there was a planning commission training session. It was like a day long or 2 days long thing, and I sat in on maybe half of it. Is that something that might come along again for both the HLC commission and the planning commission in the future again?
Good question. I can certainly help orchestrate that, as I'm one of the co-chairs for this year's Oregon chapter of the American Planning Association annual conference. That will be Peter's the other co-chair. He left. It'll be in Bend in October, and that's a great idea to incorporate a session like that at the conference.
Yeah, I mean, because it goes through everything, start to finish.
Yeah.
Like, probably more than any of us would ever really want to know, but it's still, I mean, you really fully comprehend the whole process, and in Oregon's land use laws and stuff are kind of unique. So, yeah, okay. Yeah, that'd be good. I wouldn't mind sitting in on another one of those. But
Great.
Anything else? Okay.
One comment, extra comment, question for the commission. Who is planning on attending the Sisters Historic Tour?
What's going on with that? Can I drive myself?
You certainly are welcome to drive yourself. I'm driving as well, so we can coordinate a carpool, and that's part of the question. Yeah, if you are planning on coming and want to meet up before we meet there, be in touch with me after the meeting.
I can't attend.
Okay.
It begins what time?
We're meeting in Sisters 8:45. Yeah, and it'll last until probably 1 o'clock.
Thank you. Anything else? Call this meeting adjourned. Is there a motion to adjourn?
There's a motion.
All right. Is there a second? All in favor of adjournment? Yes, we're done.
Thank you, Pat. I gave him, I passed one down, but there's still.
He already has one, Pat.
Pat, it's on this end.
This has your name on it.
Oh,
Okay.
all right,
So
pass
that
that one
goes to
back.
somebody else.
My name.
Written that big toaster letter. Did you laugh when you said that?
Oh, I did. I love it.
Not the Christmas letter, but the other.